Talk show. Recorded live.
Good morning, good evening, wherever it may be, across the nation or around the world. Once again, you're listening to the VMware Community's Roundtable Podcast. This is podcast number 585. My name is Eric Nielsen, and with me today, I have my favorite co-host, Corey Romero. Today is Wednesday, December 15th, 2021. Corey, how you doing today?
Doing well, Eric. Doing well. Recovering from the massive storm we had come into Utah last night. We got a couple feet of snow just overnight.
Awesome. That's fun. It's near Christmas or near the holiday season, so we're excited to continue doing a podcast. We'll do one this week and next week. Today on the show, we're going to be talking to Router Kirsten. He's a professional service engineer from the controlgroup.com, and we're going to talk to him about what he's been up to around Horizon REST API and PowerShell 7. He's wrote some scripts to do some paging and filtering of content. And so we're going to talk to him about what he's been up to. Did a nice blog on it. You can go to his blog and take a look at that. But before we get to Router, let's talk to Corey. I know you guys got VExpert applications up right now.
Yeah. VExpert applications are open on December 7th, and they're going to go continue through January 14th. If you're not too familiar with the VExpert program or just want to know a little bit more, you can head over to blogs.vmware.com/VExpert and read the latest blog post. It talks about the program. It has the dates in there when the applications are going to close. So applications will close on January 14th, and we're going to have an announcement for all the awards on February 18th. So make sure you get those applications in. The deadline's coming up soon.
I know that I was talking to you and you said you got like 700 or 800 apps in already. So people, have going. I know that you guys edited the VExpert application so that you could kind of keep an ongoing app profile going, so that if you went in and documented what you've been working on, that then it would just be easy. You could just say submit and boom, you were done. Did that ever go live? And is anybody using that stuff?
So there's a kind of a medium version of it right now. It's not completed. If you go in there right now, you should see the stuff that you had in there previously from your previous application. We had a little holdup with another integration we had to do, which we had to comply with legal. So we decided to spend our resources there to get matched up, because that was something we had to do prior to the application process. But once that's done, I've talked to Martin Smith, who's the VExpert and VExpert developer, and we're going to be releasing that next.
All right, so that's close, but you had to spend some time working on legal issues, right?
Yes.
Probably something to do with that, what is it, log4j or some bug that's going on right now? That's probably what it is, right? You guys are just, you probably created that. I heard it came from Minecraft, so it's probably you guys over there gaming and VExperting, and, next thing you know, I have to be up at 2 a.m. rebranding everything.
Breaking stuff.
Yeah, because everything has to be fixed, right?
Right.
Also on the show today, we have Gabby Darst. Gabby, welcome to the show. I don't know if you've been on the show or not. I think you came on at the very beginning, but Gabby has been doing some PowerShell work. She has been, coming up and starting to work on a PowerShell blog to talk about what it's like to come and learn PowerShell from the very beginning. So if you're a fairly new customer, we've got Gabby here just to talk about her impressions of, coming up to speed. And I know that Gabby, you worked on PowerShell doing calling REST APIs in Fusion, right? So you started there, and then you moved on to embedded vSphere on Fusion. So now you got a full embedded stack there. So, but we kind of made you do that. So welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here. I'm excited to be around Wouter, Corey, and Eric, the pros of this podcast.
There you go. All right. So I don't know if we have any other news. We are coming into the holiday season. We will not do a show between Christmas and New Year's. But other than that, Wouter, thanks for coming on the show again. You were here, I think, in April. We had you. So this is a follow-up return. And again, we look at what's trending in the blog world, right? Like who's doing blogs and what's trending. We try to invite people on that are doing trending blogs. And you've got another one, so 2 in a year. So congrats to you. Good job. always an easy win if you just some PowerShell stuff, right? Like it's like you automatically get traffic if you're doing
Well,
PowerShell.
actually, this one is kind of a repeat of last time, but back then it was Python, and now it's for PowerShell.
People say when you're doing broadcasting, it's okay to repeat yourself, right? Like you would never repeat yourself in a book or in text in a Word document or whatever because you've already written it down. But in voice, you can say things every 5 or 10 minutes just to reiterate, because if you say things 7 times, people start to register it as true, right? So I tell myself I'm great 7 times every hour, and then I think I'm great. So it works. So we always start the show with who are you? What's your blog? What's your career arc like? What do you do to make a living?
Yeah, so I work for ControlUp as a professional service engineer. We are monitoring remediation software for, including Horizon, for example, mainly EUC environments. Yeah, and I've been blogging about PowerShell and Horizon and all of the VMware things, I think, since 2016 or something. That was also my first year as VExpert, second batch of 2016. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's like 5 years now, right? Like,
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
It's been a while now. And I still remember looking forward to Gabi. When I started with PowerShell, I started with a book, PowerShell in a month worth of lunches. That's what I started with, to automate things for my employer back then.
Good. By the way, Wooder, I want to say I asked him for some advice. He's given me great resources to work with, so you'll definitely be part of my blog.
I'm always happy to help people, especially if you're starting. If you want to learn, hit me up. I'm always helping people with that.
So you're out of the Netherlands, right?
Yep.
And your blog is www.retow.nl. So you can go to that. What does that stand for?
Look at my first name and go backwards.
It's the backward name trick again.
With the OU in the correct order, but
yeah, there you go. Wooter. There you go.
With
a .NL. Now, I would have been super impressed if you had gotten WU.OTER, right, just so that you can have the whole thing in one domain. But we'll live with that. So you've been PowerShelling along, and Gabi, I know you've experienced some PowerShell, and one of the things that you did in your first learning experience was to actually call the Fusion REST APIs, because inside of vSphere, or inside of Fusion, they have REST APIs enabled. If you enable it, the Fusion VM, Michael Roy always comes on the show going, yeah, we enabled the Fusion REST APIs inside of Fusion. It's the same engine. It's not quite the same engine, right? But you did do calls, and then if I correct me wrong, but I think that Michael, or was it William Lamb, built a library that allowed you to make REST API calls from PowerShell, right? So, and you did some of that as well, right?
Yeah, I was able to connect to HTTPS and set up essentially the VMware Fusion Online to access it and create those commands through PowerShell.
Right.
Beginning stages.
Yeah. But the trick was that you actually had to write a PowerShell function to then call the REST API. And William had written that a couple of years ago. You found his blog and went off and engaged with the community. So Rooter is and it's Kirsten. Just corrected. I said Kirstini because I think I was using VI, and I hit the I to insert when I was typing, and then I ended up. This is I still use VI to edit the agenda for the show. But anyway, you're talking in your blog about using a REST API in PowerShell. Did you have to write any functions, or why don't we get into what you actually did?
So that blog post, I used some functions written by Andrew Morgan, Office of CTO for UC. And actually, I created a new function to use the Horizon APIs, because that's mostly what my blog talks about, using the Horizon APIs. And I've created a function to more easily consume the Horizon REST APIs.
Right. So that was kind of the same thing that William did in order to he built some standard libraries that Gabby you use to call, just list the VMs and get data about the VMs. So it's kind of helper functions that were then built in PowerShell that did all the talking through REST API. Because one of the things that it strikes me is that people know how to do shell. I know how to do shell. When you start telling me to use REST APIs and Python programming and calling, like, can I do that from PowerShell easily? And the answer, just said looking at your blog, is yeah, you can do that. You might have to write conversion functions, but it's a very doable thing. So start out with your blog, which again is called Horizon-REST-API-PowerShell-7- paging and filter. I'm not going to go through. You can go to his blog and find it under the Horizon tab on his blog. But tell me about what you actually wrote and why you wrote it.
So I've been using the REST APIs and blogging about it for a while, but there was one thing that I always had missing, and that was some of the REST APIs, the data that they can return is too big for a single API call. So they use something called pagination. So you can, the data you get back, it has a property, there is a next page. And if you want to use that, you have to create a function to get that next page. That's one of the things that's in there that you need to do. So you get all the data. If you have 1,000 VMs, but you only get the data for 500.
Right. They give you, they segment it out, and then they're just going to say there's more pages. You have to iterate through making your calls, checking to make sure at the end, does it not send you a next page? It just, I'm done, gives you a no more next
then
page.
It says the next page is false or something like that.
Yeah, null or whatever, right? Or zero. Yeah. Right. Then you have everything, and then you just have to stuff that in a table or in something that you're storing in.
Yeah, I put that in an array or a table, and
you put an array, right? Okay, right. And then iterate through that, and then that. Yeah, so then there was. I looked at it, and I forget. I don't have the article up. Here it is. There was originally one of the calls had been obsoleted or deprecated, and then moved to another one. Assign user versus assigned users. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so in Horizon they changed something. In the past, when you assigned a desktop in a desktop pool to someone, it was for one user, and they actually changed it that you can assign a machine to multiple users. So if they work in shifts, two people can use the same desktop, but not at the same time.
Right.
To preserve capacity, for example. That's use case for that. And Robin, who asked for it, he works for a hospital, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in Sweden, Norway, Nordics, I believe. Sorry, Robin, if I'm wrong. And yeah, he used that old method to assign desktops, but he needed a new one to use the assign users because they changed the API call.
And I would assume you wouldn't have a large number of users assigned. So to frame your first paragraph of your blog, Robin Stolope, I guess we'll call him Robin. Yep. If I could, came to you going, look, I'm writing the script. I used to use assign user, and now they've changed it. I get assigned users, and now I get too much back, or I have to figure out how to parse through. Or if you have a lot of assigned users, I can't imagine you have that many assigned users per Horizon desktop, though. You would think there would be 10 or less assigned to that.
It would be a few, but it's more that you can have 500 desktops in the desktop pool.
Right. Okay.
Part where you needed the pagination, but for the desktop, so you get the proper one.
Right. So the assigned user versus assigned users versus user, the fact that they changed it to users because there'd be multiple isn't why you had to do pagination. You had to do pagination just because you're just trying to get users, and you get all of your machine's users dumped to you when you call
that's my ADHD kicking in. I get a question for something and I fix 10 completely different things. And in the past, I used to create a small code sample. But in the last year or two, I've started to create full functional scripts for people who ask me questions or when I come up with an idea myself. And this is one of those things where I
Now, normally blog editors would correct you. Who are your blog editors? They would tell you, you're mixing metaphors here. You're making this over. Do you have like a blog editor team that
Nope.
reviews
This
everything?
is
And
just me and
how
mixing
did this
and
get through
matching
the process?
things.
How did you have this in your like? It's just you.
This is just me. That entire blog is just me.
Just you. Nice blog. All right. So you started with that notion, and then you wrote that. I got to say that you have your filtering here. You actually put the code in the blog. It's nice. This is all PowerShell, right? That I'm looking at, right? So it's just a full PowerShell with examples that you're using. You're setting up filters, and you're adding users. Then you get into the pagination, right?
Yep.
How long did it take you to write and debug this?
This one was, I think, 1 or 2 nights, so let's say 4 to 5 hours, something like that, with a lot of testing and all of those things.
Right. Once you get done with this, what do you do with it? Just put it on your blog? That's it?
I put it on my blog. Sometimes I reuse the same function in other of my scripts.
Right. But you don't put it on Sample Exchange at Code?
It is on my GitHub.
Oh, it's on your GitHub. Okay.
Everything that all my samples are all on my GitHub.
Nice. And then you do a very nice blog on it, so that people can use it. Do anybody give you feedback on these? Do you ever get people going like, "Wow, I used that. Thanks."
Yeah, quite often. And then there's next question. I want to try this. How can I do that? Because I'm one of the few people who blogs about the Horizon APIs. So it's not about the REST API piece that but mainly about Horizon APIs. How can I do this? How can I do that?
Right. And clearly Horizon scales, right? So you really do, if you're going to manage Horizon, you really do have to approach it this way, right? You're going to probably be a good PowerShell scripter because there's just, you get 10,000 clients, right? You have to automate, right?
If you have a few hundred clients, it's already helping. It's what made me start with it. I was running a Horizon environment at that time, and I'm lazy. I wanted to automate things.
Right. Yeah, of course. One of the things that I back at Sun, I created a thing called Big Admin, and we had a script section, which was what with the claim to the fame of the site was that nobody had really built a really good script section yet. And so I built a script section. One of the problems with scripts is keeping them up to date, right? Or keeping the code up to date and version control. And somebody has a bug fix or has a fix that they want you to do or some edit. How do you manage that kind of stuff? Like if you write this, now you've got it, but the timer starts from it aging and when somebody wants to add something or do something, do you have any process for that? Like you put it on GitHub, do you let anybody, I guess you could just let people give you feedback. You could actually give them access to the code if you wanted. Right?
Yeah, they can always download. I'm not getting any pull requests or something from other people.
No, I wouldn't expect.
Right? But that most of my scripts are examples, and they work in my case, and they might need to run something different. But even for companies, please do use something like GitHub or Git or GitLab or whatever. Use versioning because too often I've had I messed it up and I don't have a copy of that old version anymore. So you actually have to track back and recreate what you did in the past because you have no versioning.
So Gabby, you've been kind of experiencing the community because you're new and you've started. What are some of the challenges you find in, absorbing the community content that people have published?
It's a great question. I have to say first of all, I just want to acknowledge the community, the code community is ridiculously tight knit. Like I've never seen a group of people more willing to help and share information. Like it's kind of like their own influencer group. Like everyone, like kind of what you said, Wouter, like as soon as someone finds out something, you're so willing to share that with the community. One thing that I struggled with is that there's a plethora of information out there. So trying to find the right information that fits the needs that I'm looking for. So, for example, when I was looking at William Lamb's blog, kind of what you would have said, there was, I don't know if that's mine, but there was a he essentially had the example scripts, but you have to tailor that to your own needs. So it's also being able to pinpoint from the example that's offered in the blog articles, what are the things that, what tools that I have that I can use that can allow me to do the same thing as the blog, and what other blogs out there can fulfill the things that were not prevalent in the first initial blog article that you read. So it's like it's a rabbit hole. I think you have an opportunity to find something out. Many links are offered, many GitHub repositories are seen, and being able to pick and choose and see how it best fits your environment, from my experience.
Yeah, it also for me always feels like, and somebody tried to solve this a few years back, in that you don't know the timeline of when things are published. And so you get stuck, and then you realize, oh, wait, this is 5 years old now, right? And this isn't actually going to behave properly. Or, what is the latest stuff? Or like what you do, you realize that, oh, William wrote this library in, 2017.
Yeah.
Right. And you talk to him and he goes, yeah, or so knowing where to select the latest stuff, right? So that you're not reinventing the wheel. Now, some of this is just coming up to speed. There's just a certain amount of learning the old ways, because you bump into them and you think you got this, and then you realize, oh, there's a whole nother way to do this. And or somebody wrote a library. Is that your mail?
I don't know if that's mine.
No idea what it is. I've got everything else turned off. So
Me too.
Do I have mail up? Is that me? Who has?
I'm not as popular as you, Eric. So I don't know.
Mail, but I don't think I have mail up. I don't know whose mail. I don't know.
Me too.
I'm just going to sit here and send you mail consistently.
Yeah, right.
Write a script.
No, I got calendar up, but I don't have mail. All right, whoever it was, it's not me. There you go, mail. Oh, I have Mac mail up. Maybe it's Mac mail.
There we go.
Yeah.
The bug.
But I don't get that much Mac mail. That's just my own private mail. So yeah, there is this notion of trying to grind through it, but then you get smart because you do the old school ways, or you bump into the old school ways. Okay.
it wasn't your Mac mail.
It's not my Mac mail. It's not me.
I don't
It's
have
definitely
anything
not me.
either.
Yeah, I have everything closed.
Yeah, we already had it when both of us were only on yet, Eric. So that's either one of us.
It's me somewhere. I just got to find where. Well, I got a tab somewhere.
Debug, find it.
No,
That's another rabbit hole that you get into when you get researching and Googling for stuff. You get around 3,000 tabs open at some time, consuming all memory on your system.
When I was when I was beginning to learn PowerShell, like my tabs on my Google Chrome, you couldn't even read the beginning anymore of like the thing, because it's in each article there's an opportunity to open up a new article, look back at the old code, and then in the GitHub repositories as well. Oh wow! But I will say also the flings. So like that's one thing I appreciated within the code community as well. So a lot of people are also doing their own things, coming up with their own small solutions to something. And then I noticed a lot of people's flings end up being converted into actual like product enhancements. So I don't know if that's happened in Horizon with your experience.
Yeah, there are a few Horizon flings indeed that Andrew Morgan created. There are several of them that became product, or that Chris Alstead created. They became products. Yeah, definitely.
Is that like a success for most people when it becomes?
Absolutely. My first VMworld, I was VExpert for 2 weeks. That was Vegas 2016, and I did a vBrownback session on some VMware flings.
Wow.
And some of those from back then became product. So that was cool.
It's a little proud moment.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's super cool.
All right. So, Wouter, when you look at something new to do, how do you decide what you're going to spend your time on, right? Because the one I've discovered with all this is that it's a rabbit hole. You could spend your life doing this stuff, right? And do you just let your customers drive what you're doing, or your day-to-day function, or what? How do you pick and choose what you're going to work on next?
Customer questions. I always, every Horizon version that there on the REST API, so I am maintaining the Python module for Horizon. That's something that I started this year. So And that always gives, oh, this is new. Oh, maybe I can blog about it. Just like last week, one of the new functions in the most recent version of Horizon is that you can actually create a desktop pool using the REST APIs. Well, that's something that people have been asking for years. Can we do that using REST? Okay, let's make a blog post about it.
Right. Yeah. So that's So you're just following along, and then as new, you kind of get on the roadmap of what new features come. Are there APIs that are available for those new features, and then you can then blog about it, write some sample code for it, publish the sample code. So as long as there's a big engineering team that's building new functionality, you'll have a job, right? And you can do that.
I'll have someone, and sometimes just like that blog post that we now talked about, it's someone reaching out on Twitter or on the VExpert Slack or someone else. How can we do this? Yeah, I know I can do it. It's hard to explain right now. Give me 2 days and I will have a blog post for you. And it gives me content. So it's a win-win.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that was that answers my follow-up question, which is, hasn't everything been written in PowerShell already? You would think that, given that it's been out for like 10 years now, that you have every possible script out there to do everything, right? But
no, people, REST APIs is technically not related to PowerShell. PowerShell is just one of the ways to consume it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. PowerShell, but I guess in the end, as we add new features, then you can build PowerShell connectors for things that are in REST API being exposed in REST APIs, and so it's just a never-ending journey. When we talk, and you're not in this space too, but I look at Kubernetes and all the new functionality in vSphere that's coming along. Then you have whole new REST APIs and whole new PowerShell modules that could engage with those to control all your workloads running in Kubernetes, from pod workloads to you name it. There's like a million things, to configuring YAML files, to everything that you could do sitting up at that upper level.
And that's the advantage of REST APIs. If it doesn't matter if you use PowerShell for your automation or Ansible or Puppet or whatever, everything can talk REST API. So you can use your favorite tool. That's the advantage of REST APIs.
Right. So talk debugging for a moment here, because I think that's another thing that, and Gabby, I don't know if you experience this or not, but like, how do you debug, what's actually happening when you run it to when you get your results back, right? Like, how do you know if it works? It's easy. You get the data back and it's, there you go. It works, right? And, but when it doesn't work, what's your favorite way to debug? And I guess I'll ask Wouter first, and then Gabby, I'll get the simple version of what you experienced when it came to debugging. But Wouter, why don't you go?
Yeah, within Visual Studio Code, for example, you can put stop moments. So at that moment in time, you stop the script, and you can actually go into the data that you have at that moment in time.
I didn't realize that they did that at script. I've always have done this in C and C++ and Java, breakpoints and stop, but I didn't realize you could write your scripts and you could fire off your scripts and get that same environment.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah, well, that answers that then, right? You can just march through. Other than there can be failure modes on the server if the server crashes, so if there's a bug on the REST API itself, but that's just a REST API problem, right? Like, so if they implement something that crashes on that side, that's a bigger problem, I guess, right? Like, because whenever you're running something on your local Windows machine, running PowerShell, and then it's communicating to the server that's then doing some task, if the task gets confused, but that's really, as long as the REST APIs are implemented properly, that shouldn't happen. They should just give you an error code back, right?
Correct. You should at least get why it's breaking.
Right. Where I've had trouble when I'm building applications, I'm usually building the back end and the front end, right? So therefore, my back end has code bugs. So then I'm trying to debug between my front end and my back end, and you can't rank breakpoints and get what's actually happening on the back end code. But in this case, you're just calling APIs that VMware's done, and VMware doesn't have bugs. So therefore,
but in the end, we will just blame the network being the issue. So
that's the problem too. Gabby, did you run into scenarios like this? Did you have trouble debugging?
I haven't yet, but I will take note of what Wooter said in terms of creating breakpoints. I do remember learning there's a command on PowerShell, the set PS breakpoint, to specify that line or function, to find it. So next time I run a script, I'll be sure to.
Well, I don't think you even use Visual Studio at this point, right?
Not yet. It's all terminal for me right now.
Yeah, you haven't been writing massive lines of code.
No.
But that'll be the next step. Yeah. You're probably like using Notepad, if I were to guess. I don't know what editor you actually use. It's embarrassing to even ask you this question.
Yeah, let's next question.
Yeah. So go download. We got a job for you, Gabby. Go download Visual Studio and run something. Set some breakpoints. Maybe I'll do the same thing. I will do a shout out. We are doing a 12 days of the holiday season, like the song 12 Days of Christmas. And we've got 12 tiered steps that we're going to be running in social media starting next week, where we'll give you challenges, 12 days of Christmas learning.
Nice.
It's, about midway through, you'll have Tanzu set up on a home lab. And then you'll be writing some code near the end of it. So we're going to do a contest on that. So should be fun. So just, maybe I'm going to try to do that over the holiday too, right? So that I can finally get my home lab up and running and write some code again, right? That'll be good. So Wooter, we've been through kind of what you've been up to. Always will ask in the coming year, right? How much time do you spend on, writing code versus doing your day job, whatever your day job is, right? Like helping customers architect solutions.
Well, a big part of my day job is actually also writing code. So it really depends on the mood I'm in. Do I feel like blogging? I'll create a blog post. Do I feel like playing with the dogs? I'll do that. It can be anything from 1 to 8 hours a week or something that I spend on it.
And how did you sign up for supporting the Horizon Python library?
Well, I created it, so that's not that difficult.
All right. I guess it's your library. Do you have any formal connection with any teams with regard to like what's coming next?
No, not at all. No, I'm a VExpert EUC, so we do get some inside information, but API-wise, I always know it at the same moment as the public knows it.
Okay, so it's your library. Any way to monetize that library? Are you going to become a billionaire? Are you going to rename yourself Meta Wooter? Right?
No, I know it's open for everyone can use it. If someone wants to add to it, please do so.
Where do you go get that? Is that just on your GitHub page as well?
It's on github.com/magneet_nl.
All right. Put it in the chat and I'll publish it on the YouTube and
/magneet_nl. Yeah. You can find it on github.com, and it's always linked in my blog post as well. If I uploaded it, it's linked there to GitHub somewhere. Cool. It has the Horizon REST API. Horizon_REST API_Python. That's what I started with. That's where the Python module is. I've got several VCheck for Horizon View. That's actually what did get me started with the Horizon APIs. I needed to do daily checks for my Horizon environment. I knew the VCheck from Alan Renouf at that time. It's now completely community maintained, and I created one for Horizon. That's how I started with Horizon APIs.
Nice. I should ask anything else on the blog. You got your sample scripts. It's a very long blog. You got all the code here, so it's a good one to know.
That's what I try to do. I try to put the code in there.
Wooter, your blog, I read through it. I've never seen, when you mentioned like your ADHD kicked in, I've never seen a blog as comprehensive as yours. Like we were talking about the plethora of information. Super good job, I have to say.
And it's like I don't put a lot of fluff in there. It's the plain truth.
Yeah, it's straight to the point. Yeah.
And still pretty lengthy sometimes.
I gotta say, also, when you look at the blog, right, the 100 days of code. I know we talked about the day, that process that you had going on. I think last time you were on the
think we did.
podcast as well, right? And you actually have, I think you got, what did you get to? Day 26, 28, day 26.
Yeah, then I stopped blogging, and I was following the 100 Days of Python course on Udemy,
Mhm.
and I stopped at that point and started working on the Horizon module.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But it is a good way, and I give you credit for like building a kind of, hey, here's how to get started, right? Go shout out to that blog as well, right? Because it's very straightforward. And Gabby, it might be somewhere that you want to go check
Point
out.
the Udemy course.
I
We covered that.
asked Woody for some advice for Python, just because I think it's important. If I'm going to learn PowerShell, that's also another language I need to start getting my
The
hands
big
on.
difference between PowerShell and Python, with PowerShell, you don't need indentation. It doesn't even care about capitalization. If you don't do that with Python, it will break.
Oh, really? Okay, good to know. Good to know.
PowerShell is a scripting language. Python is getting closer to a programming language because it has rules in there. You need to have the proper capitalization. Indentation, if you screw that up, it will fail. Period.
That's one of the bugs you have to find.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, there's my son did an interview at Roku because my other son works at Roku, so I got him an internship interview, right? And my son's at University of Chicago doing C and C++, right? And he hasn't taken a Python, but when he was doing his resume, I put Python on there, no problem. When he was doing his resume this summer, before he was getting ready to send it out, because you got to apply for internships like in September for your internship the following summer. So he put on there Python, even though he hadn't written any Python, right? Of course, this is a common thing that we all do, right? Or at least a guy from marketing, his dad who's in marketing goes, yeah, put it all on there. Tell him you worked on the space shuttle. It's fine. They'll never be able to figure out that you didn't, right? And then, of course, he gets the interview, and he had his final exams, and he had I think he had 26 hours between his final exams ending to where he had to then prep to go do the interview. And he did a 10-hour online Python course, and he was good, right? He went in, and the technical interviews these days, they get you online, and they talk with you on Zoom, but they also take you to a website. I don't know what the website name is, but it's some coder website where they give you the challenge, and you just have to write the code in real time on the website, and then he grades you. The interviewer grades you while you're doing the challenge on a website. So it's kind of like you don't have to write code on a whiteboard anymore. Like, how many of us have had to go into an interview and sit and then write something on a whiteboard and explain how things work? You do it online in a virtual, coding environment, right? But he did well. So the point is that Python is one of those languages that you can learn. But my son's input was, to you guys' point, like to Wooter's point, is you have to pay attention to your tabs, right? It's a unique way of controlling control structures is by indents, right? And your indentation does control the flow of the code, but other than that, it's if, while, then, iteration, et cetera, et cetera. So not too bad.
And Graham pointed it out. That's something that an IDE like Visual Studio Code helps with, because you do the tab and it does the proper indentation for you. And then it gets even better because you have extensions that actually colorize it. So I see the different tab levels in different colors.
Right.
What's a good extension that you feel like most people who have Visual Studio Code should have?
I have Rainbow Indent. That's that one. I have Rainbow Indent 2, I believe. I should be able to quickly pull up my Visual Studio Code. And I use a bracket pair colorizer. So if you use brackets, and it will match them up in colors.
Okay. So I want to set up my environment well for Visual Studio Code. Yeah.
I should do a blog post. I know William Lamb did a blog post about the extensions that he used a long time ago, but some of those still apply, and or it could give you ideas of what you can use.
Okay, good to know.
And you can use something like Git directly from Visual Studio Code as well.
Okay.
So you do your push requests, everything straight from there.
Okay, we'll tune back. We'll circle back when I figure that out.
I will send you some of the extensions that I use.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So coding there. Question on user interfaces, right? Like, so for a while, people started building little web apps to control virtualization. Like there was a cross between scripting in shells and running things in shells versus, building little web apps that gave you kind of like nice little happy click screen environments to do stuff. Do people do that now, or do they basically embed stuff into VMware's HTML? Does VMware's GUIs have a way to embed things or extend out interfaces? Like I always feel like there's the console with vCenter, you're looking at things, and then there's these scripts that I got to run, and they're like two different worlds. Sometimes people would build kind of GUI apps to pull them together. Do you see yourself ever doing that? Do you see the world doing that?
Hardly. The automation is mostly used from automation.
Right.
And actually, within vSphere, I'm not sure if it's a fling or if it's not in product, but there is a way that you can actually see the code that's being done when you do something in the vSphere client.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
gives you
gives
the code what you're doing.
Right. Right. But nobody's been building. I remember in 2008, there was some efforts going on to kind of like pull those two worlds together. I don't think they ever came together. I was just curious if you ever see any of that, right? Like from my perspective, I just live in shells and I pop up shells, and I have shells and then I have browsers, and they're two separate things that I use. But I was just curious if anybody had done any of that. And Corey, the reason I bring that up is that the minute you do that kind of stuff, it's a nightmare, because now you're talking to Apache servers and you're building web front end that's calling things and then calling things in the back end. So debugging gets an order of magnitude more complicated. And that's when I just go, why don't you just use pencil and paper and do it manually? Because trying to debug, web GUI to power scripting to REST APIs to backend servers, there's just too many layers, and you just might as well get in your car or bicycle, pedal down to the data center and get on the console and just run the command manually. It saves you time, right? Versus trying to build web interfaces that make all that happen.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you get all those vulnerabilities that are popular this week. So
Right. Then you have security issues. So yeah, nobody's doing that. That makes sense. Do you guys, Wooter, do you ever get into notifications, like frameworks, like when things are done? If you have a big workload, right, that you're running a script on, how do you get notified at the end that it's done, that it did well? The old days we just parse through log files. Any kind of stuff going on there?
no, for the things that I do, I don't really need it. So
just run, and when it's done, you look at it.
When it's done, it's done. I don't have those big workloads. Like I never did those big email migrations where you need to know, okay, now the this part is done and I need to start that.
Right. Or what I get into is, let's say I ran something across 800 nodes and 3 of them failed. How do I keep track of ones that failed? Or just when something fail, you just bail?
You bail, or you use a try catch in the case of PowerShell, and if it fails, you write away a file somewhere. Okay, this server failed.
This server failed, and then you just look at the logs when you're done.
Yep.
Nobody's building log insight connectors and dumping things into log insight or anything like that to run. If you're automating large scale data,
probably some people do. If you are in big environments, you will need to do something like that.
Yeah. I could see that. So coming up, we've enjoyed 45 minutes with you. I always look at like what's going to happen in 2022. Are you getting any kind of direction from the people that control your lives on what you should be doing in 2022 that we should all hear about or know about or think about with regard to like, hey, what's in your plans for 2022 besides hanging in your attic writing more PowerShell?
I purchased a new Udemy course on data visualization and things, big data with the Python. Just to learn something new, to work with big data.
Oh, interesting. Right. Any particular data sets you're thinking about trying to collect or process?
Yeah, with Control Up, we have plenty of data sets, and for Control Up, I made in PowerShell, actually made an application that has a GUI that does some calculations based on our metrics to advise the customer on how they can set their alerting, stuff like that. And then that was an idea that I used. Maybe I can do that in Python because PowerShell and big data, it's not the best combination.
Are you doing anything with telcos in Europe? Like, do you?
No,
No?
we don't really do telco stuff. No.
All right, because some of the edge and telco stuff that's going on there too, that gets
There
into
you have big
a
data.
big data perspective, right? Because
Definitely.
you can do trending of what apps are out on the edge and who's doing what with what apps, and the reason they're putting those servers out on the edge is because they want to get the data closer to the edge, and then you get into AI and processing that data. So some of that's fun. What tools did you get? I missed what you had said. What you had acquired to do this?
Yeah, a course on Udemy.
What is
Python, data visualization and big data or machine learning. Udemy is a website where you can purchase courses. I also got the 100 days of Python and over there.
Oh, so you bought cloud services, right? Number of CPU running this stuff to do that?
No, that's just the course itself. So
the course. I thought you said
course.
I thought you said
No,
cores.
course,
I was like,
no,
no, you got how many cores did you get? Like, can you bit mine on them? I want to bit mine on some cores. Give me some cores. All right, so you got a course. All right, cool.
You got one Corey.
Right. There you go. Yeah. All right. Well, that gives you something to do. Online learning is a great thing to do. As I said, we're going to do the 12 days of Kubernetes over the holidays so that people can go and learn how to, get some Kubernetes education as well as setting up your home lab with Kubernetes running on it. And that should be something fun for everybody to do if you get a holiday break. Are you taking a holiday break? Do you guys get holiday breaks in Europe?
Oh, we do get them, but I'm hardly taking one. I've got a couple of days, but for the rest, not a lot.
I'm sorry to hear that. VMware takes the week off, so it's kind of a fun moment where we get some downtime to do some projects, right? Or at least I hope to do some projects, right? While we get 7 days off in a row. It's like I got some time to do that. All right. Well, Wouter, it is always a pleasure to hear what you've been up to. And, just do a shout out to your blog. If you're interested in Horizon and, APIs and automation, that's the place to go. And good job keeping up and posting that stuff on advocacy.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. Last thing we do before we close up is for you, barbecue. I know we talked barbecue last time, or I think I asked you, what do they barbecue in the Netherlands?
I think they just got. I'm not a big barbecue guy. Sometimes I grill something, but I think they copy most of what you guys do in the US. So
yeah,
I'm not a big guy on that.
All right. Other Netherlands question along with barbecue. Do you ride a motorcycle?
No.
Yeah, because when last time I was in Amsterdam, right? Like we're downtown Amsterdam, and like 300 motorcycles come cruising through the city, right? It seems like that's a Netherlands thing that goes on, like motorcycle field trips where everybody's on their motorcycle cruising through the city. Corey, you were with me on that. You remember that? Like they're all like there's like a whole massive.
I didn't really remember them in the Netherlands too much. I know in Spain it's crazy amount of motorcycles, but Netherlands not so much. I don't remember that.
In the Netherlands, we were downtown Amsterdam, and we were downtown. Came out happy tourist kind of landed with me, you, and Tony Dunn.
Yeah.
Like everybody and his brother drove motorcycles down into downtown, Amsterdam, and then revved them up. Run!
I do remember this. Yes. I do remember.
You couldn't hear for like
they rode right into like the square area,
yeah, the
right?
Square. There were like 300 or 400 bikes.
Moved
in and took over.
I think that's probably a rare occasion, right? Like because we didn't see it much after that, but we saw more bicycles.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, sure. But I could just see Wouter in his black leather jacket, cruising around on his bike, like, what is it? girl with the dragon tattoo, same kind of scenario. Wooter, you got that going. I appreciate you writing all the code. Thanks a lot for sharing today. Thanks for coming on the podcast. Hope you have a great holiday, what you do get off, and I'm sure we'll see you again sometime next year. Thanks for coming on the show. Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Gabby, have fun in Singapore. Glad you guys are out of the quarantine hotel as always, and hope you get some time to write some PowerShell.
Thanks so much for having me. Wooter, it was great seeing you in person again. Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers.
Folks.